to stop by tomorrow just to look at it, because I've never been there. Okay, well, we're waiting for just a couple more folks to walk in.
I'll be in.
You'll see my two daughters out there. You gotta ask my youngest, Audrey, about her bird.
A bird.
Yes.
Yeah,
the
see, Dad has
Go
said
over,
no
get
birds
turn it off.
ever in the house because they make a lot of noise. We have dogs, we adopt lizards, spiders. We had a spider, one of those wolf spiders, as big around as the palm of my hand, and we kept that thing for about 5 or 6 months. We always knew it needed new crickets because you'd walk down at night and it would be quiet. You wouldn't hear it. So, time to go get more crickets for the spider. So we've adopted lots of animals, but I have always said no birds. Well, they were at the park the other day and found a baby hummingbird fell out of its nest.
Oh.
And it's that big. And so I get the phone call. Oh, this is a phone call after last week that they wanted to bring home a dog.
Oh.
We have 2
We're
dogs.
walking neighborhoods, we've been rescuing animals.
Yeah, we have 2 dogs. And anyway, so I said no to the dog. And then, but the bird, it's a hummingbird.
Yeah.
And so, oh, Dad, please, please. So I'm like, well, hummingbirds don't make noise. So, all right, we'll try the hummingbird. But I had to warn her, it's probably going to die. But if it doesn't, as soon as it learns how to fly, we have to let it go. So she was a little sad about that, but she said, okay, if I get to keep it. So I broke my rule about no birds
Compromise.
because this, a
Compromise. There we
hummingbird,
go.
a hummingbird doesn't make noise, so it kind of took care of that. Well, the first night, I'm in my bed upstairs, and the hummingbird's down in the kitchen, and all I hear is beep, 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 beep.
Like
This thing
water
is hungry
dripping.
as can be, and it's letting us know. I'm like, I think hummingbird.
All night long. And if she's not near it or holding it, she makes noise. It just beep, 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 beep. And then as soon as Audrey comes near it, she's okay. And
It's
she
already
goes-
taken to her. huh?
Oh, yeah. In fact, she'll take it out of the cage. It flies now. And it flies
Wow.
up and comes right back to her. That's
Wow.
amazing.
The good news is it's learning how to fly. So.
Yes.
We'll
So,
release it
Get out
back
of
to
the
the wild.
nest.
It has own wings, huh?
yeah.
What do you feed it, just that nectar?
Nectar, and we went to a pet store, or a avian specialist, and she said that hummingbirds require really tiny insects, but because she was a brand new baby, that a cat got the mom right in front of us at the park, and then the baby fell out of the tree. And so Audrey found it in the grass and picked it up, and so we brought it home. And so the avian specialist gave us a baby, it's like a baby food mixture that's ground up insects, and so we have to water that down with some watered stuff and feed it that too. But it's funny because as soon as it ate that, we were giving her the nectar through the through a dropper, a syringe, and then she got the food through the syringe. And boy, once she got that stuff, it's like power food, man. It started flapping its wings. It was like, ooh, good protein. So yeah, it's pretty
I think you
interesting.
guys could probably go to Starbucks and get the bugs though.
Anywhere in Boone County, you can get the bugs.
I know. She said I should just open my window on the way home and just stick a cup out and get all the bugs. Yeah. She was out in our backyard for hours trying to look for creatures the other day, and I said, "No, Mom, Mommy sprays like crazy. There are no ants, no creatures anywhere."
All right, I'm going to get started. I think maybe a couple more are going to walk in, but let's get started. So anyways, my name is Rick Tubbs, and I'm running to be your congressman. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We spent some time over the weekend making some phone calls and dropping out flyers, inviting folks out. And the whole idea is to get my name, of course, and my intentions to run to be your congressman out there, but also a message of why I'm running and why I'm hoping to earn your vote. And tonight, I'm going to give you some very clear ideas of what I will do as your congressman, what I believe in, what I think are some good solutions for our country. And tonight, you'll be able to walk out with a clear choice in your head whether I'm someone you would want to represent you or not. And before you leave tonight, we're going to have plenty of time for questions. This is a smaller crowd, which gives us more time for questions, which is great. Glenn is one of the smaller counties in the district, and we'll show you up there how it works. However, it's a very good county for a lot of reasons in terms of its rural environment, a lot of good conservative voters up here, which is what I'm looking for. Very, very good. So please, I'm going to give a little bit of a talk, think of questions you might have as we go through a few slides and a few of the things I'm talking about. And then ask me towards the end, or I shouldn't say towards the end, ask me when I'm done. We'll have plenty of time for questions and I'll answer what we can do. So without further ado, let me get started on what we're doing here. And go ahead, Luke. I am a Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Air Force Reserve, a commander of my unit, which is an honor and a privilege. But what it means is I've got a lot of experience as a leader. And I think one of the primary purposes of a leader, if not the purpose, is to first give you a vision of where I think we should go, and then a purpose of why I think we should go there. So let me start out with my vision, and it's very simple: to win in 2012. That is the vision. But also to build a grassroots organization through spreading of our message, getting to know folks, and bringing them on board. A grassroots organization that goes out there and talks to the voters and gets this message out there, so people are voting knowing what they're voting for, not just for the D or for the R or for the name or whatever. I'm running a campaign on solutions and issues and ideas, and so I need folks' help to get out there and talk to others, because I can't talk to 250,000 people all by myself, one-on-one. So that's the vision of what we're doing. Now the purpose is always a sacrifice. There's some sort of sacrifice in where we're going and the effort it takes to get there. And the purpose I put up there is the issues that I'm running on. And they are very straightforward. And the top three, and I'm going to spend just a couple minutes on these. The very first reason I'm asking for your vote, the very first thing I want you to think of as you go into that voting booth and vote for Rick Tubbs is I'm going to balance the federal budget. We are borrowing over $1 trillion every year. I'm sure you're aware of these numbers. Against our futures, their futures, my kids, my 2 girls out there, many of you have children, grandchildren. We're borrowing against their future for our standard of living today, because we are not responsible enough, we're not smart enough, whatever the reason is our federal government just isn't getting it done. So I want to be a part of solving that problem, balancing the budget. Put it in context. We borrow, as a government, over $2 million every minute of every day. $2 million is a lot of money to me. I could probably live the rest of my life on $2 million very comfortably. We're not spending $2 million a minute, we're borrowing that much every minute of every day, nonstop, all year round. And right now, there is no plan to fix it. There is no plan out there. Paul Ryan's budget was passed by the House a couple of days ago, and it is attempting to do it. But the current plan, well, the Senate has yet to pass a budget for 3 years now. The current plan is to continue these deficits far into the future with no fix in sight. And that's what I am running, is to be a part of fixing that, because I think I can. I have balanced many budgets in my life, whether it's our family budget, my wife and I work on very diligently and do it together, whether it's our small business budget that we had a while back when we were business owners, so we understand that side of it. And another reason why I think I could be a congressman today for you is I have worked on several military budgets, federal level budgets. Right now as a commander I have nearly $20 million under my control that I have to balance every year. And we do, and it's simple. You prioritize your spending. There's always more liabilities than money to spend, always. So what's most important? What are you going to spend that money on? Prioritize that list. Then you take every dollar you get and you stretch it as far as you can to make good use of it. Oh, by the way, those dollars are your dollars, right? Those tax dollars, it's your money. When you go to work and they suck out your income taxes, that's money you work for, you earn, and it goes to the government. And I'll never forget that it's your money that I'm spending, and I better do it wisely. Even better than if it was my own. So we have to stretch every one of those dollars as far as they go, and then you draw a line, right? And you say no to some stuff. Say, this stuff that we can't afford, we're not going to spend money on. And that's the way we need to go forward. So balancing the budget. How do we do it? One thing tonight you're going to hear from me is actual solutions, actual ideas, things you can hang your hat on and walk away and say, that's what Rick Tubbs is going to go fight for. It's one thing to say balance the budget. It's one thing to say we borrow too much money. It's another thing to actually stick your neck out there and say, this is how I will go about doing it. And I'm about doing that. As a leader, that's what you do. You show the way. You take the risk of controversy, take the risk of somebody disagreeing with you, take the risk of putting down on paper or out there in the public, this is what I want to do to get to where we're going. And then you defend it. You articulate the idea. You show the pros and cons. So how am I going to do it? First of all, we got to grow jobs, not taxes. We pay enough taxes in this country. Grow jobs. Make more taxpayers than there are tax takers. Okay? 9% unemployment, stick in there. How do we grow the jobs? That's my vision for growing revenue, growing jobs. How do we do it? We get the government off the backs of the job creators. There is way too much of a federal government burden on those trying to create jobs, small businesses in particular, but large ones too, the ones that will produce those jobs. And we do that through three different things. I call it the three-legged monster that's killing jobs, chasing them overseas, or just flat out making them disappear. And one is taxation. We are now the highest tax rate on corporations at 35% because Japan used to be number one, finally figured it out, lowered their tax rates. We're number one in the world. Taxation's too high. Income tax rates, I want to leave alone. Leave them where they're at. They're cut a couple times under Bush. Democrats are trying to raise those taxes on supposedly the rich, but those rich are small business owners that are out there trying to make a living paying income tax. And the ones that are making more than $200,000 are the ones in the best position to grow their business and grow some jobs. So I don't want to put a further burden on them. So taxes, one. Regulations. This is the biggest leg on that monster. When Ronald Reagan started in 1981 as our president, he went after taxes, which was good. But another thing he went after that we have failed to do, whether it was Bush or Obama, we have failed to go after those regulations and make them more business friendly while still making the restrictions or making sure that the environment or the workplace are safe. There are ways to have regulations to make sure people are safe that are business or job creation friendly, and we have to work towards that. Ronald Reagan put together what was called the Grace Commission to look at those regulations and to reform them. Right now, how many small business owners do we have? I know we got some back there. When I talk to small business owners, what I'm hearing is you have no idea what it'll cost next year to hire somebody. How much is Obamacare going to cost you? How much is the next regulation going to come out? We have that cap and trade just hanging on our head right now. It was passed by the House. If cap and trade goes through, it's going to be a lot more expensive to run your business. Okay, and we can talk about that actual bill later. But all these regulations out there, before President Obama was in place, we passed about 149 a year that cost the economy $100 million. We're passing 249 a year now. And it just becomes more and more expensive to do business, and you have no idea what the next regulation is going to be coming out of Washington that's going to cost you money. We have to stop that. We have to stop the madness. And we have to go back and redo the regulations that are there so that they bring us to where we want to be in a way that doesn't hurt business and hurt jobs. And let me give you a couple examples. Real solutions. American Disabilities Act. Who's familiar? You know why we have ramps on our crosswalks and why we have extra large bathrooms in places of business? I am absolutely for the American Disabilities Act. I think it's a great regulation that allows access, better access to normal life for our disabled Americans. I think it's great. What I don't like about it is the personal injury lawsuit provision in it, where if you're a disabled American, you go into a restaurant, and if the mirror is 2 inches higher than it should be, according to the ADA, you can personally sue the business and get a settlement from that. And unfortunately, there are some very unscrupulous lawyers and people out there doing that for a living, going in and just having businesses settle. Because as a business owner, you're smart. You gauge your risk. You try to stretch those dollars to balance your budget. So if the lawyer comes in and says it's going to be cheaper to settle than it is to fight, you're going to settle. And people are doing that over and over again. So let's go ahead and have our American Disabilities Act, But take away this personal injury lawsuit ability of people, let's make it between the government and the business, not between the individual and the business. And now we still get what we want, and that's better access for our disabled Americans. And we allow these businesses to grow unfettered by these ridiculous lawsuits that are out there. All right, let's take a look at another regulation. I'm talking to an Exxon engineer, you know, the guys out there, as you go to the coast, down Martinez and stuff like that. I met an Exxon engineer. And he pulls me aside at one event last time I was running, and he says, you gotta help us on these regulations. I go, well, tell me what you mean. He goes, well, the EPA tells me how much heavy metals I can have in my wastewater that goes to open sources. I don't have a problem with that. And you know what? Neither do I. As your congressman, I think that's a smart thing to regulate how much of that stuff that we allow to go into the system. You know, we don't want lead and mercury and all this stuff in our fish and our open waters. That makes sense. He says the problem is the EPA tells me exactly how to pull that heavy metal out of my wastewater, and it's inefficient and expensive. Just let me figure it out. Give me the limit and let me meet it, because I can do it a whole lot more cheaply and a whole lot more effectively. But they tell me how to do it instead of just giving me the limit. That's what I mean about reforming regulations. It's good for government to protect our environment or our workplace. It's bad for government to tell businesses how to operate their business to meet those regulations. And if they can't make it, maybe we do have some sort of government program that helps a business. If you can't figure it out and you're gonna go out of business, maybe there is something there that says, hey, we're gonna help you figure this out. But to actually go in and tell them as the default position, that's what's killing jobs. That's what's making it hard for America to grow in their economy. Howdy, folks, welcome. Good to see you. Thanks. So there's a couple of things you can hang your hat on. There's a whole lot more out there. And as a small business owner or as a constituent in general, I'm going to have an open dialogue with folks in my district saying what kind of regulations are standing in your way, and let's try to figure out how to do it better. Because I'm going to represent you. There's my principles that I won't bend on, and I'm going to give you those tonight, and you can count on me sticking to my principles. But then there's this area where I'm your voice, and I need to be your voice. And my principle is government needs to not tell businesses how to do business. They need to set some limits, do some smart things. Let you all be Americans and figure out how to run your business and prosper. That's my principle. Now, this area is, hey, Rick, we got this regulation that I have to have a clean hairnet every 30 minutes for my restaurant, and it's killing me. Is that a smart way of doing business? I don't know. I just made that up. So, you know, but you come to me, you talk to me about this stuff, and we see what we can do about it. All right, next thing. Litigation is that third leg of that three-legged monster that's killing jobs. Litigation, frivolous lawsuits. You know, you see the 2020 where people throw a grape on the ground in Costco or something and then purposely trip on it or something. Those kind of frivolous lawsuits, again, as a business owner, I talked to a restaurant owner in Martinez last time out. A lot of these stories are last time. I have some from this time. We're learning them this time again. But he had an individual that worked for him stealing money out of the register, so he fired him. Well, a few months or a few weeks later, that person comes back with an unlawful termination lawsuit. This guy was about to open a second restaurant in Martinez with 30 new employees. He got hit with the ADA thing, cost him money. Then he gets hit with this lawsuit. And his lawyer says, you will win, dead to rights, but it's going to cost you $50,000 to $75,000 legal fees to do it. So why don't we offer the guy $25,000 to go away? So being a smart business owner, that's what he did, but now he didn't have the capital to go out and hire those 30 people in a second restaurant. Frivolous lawsuits. This is killing jobs. And we do something to fix that called loser pays.
Absolutely.
You want to bring a frivolous lawsuit with a lawyer who's willing to do it for free, and the only way he's going to get paid is if he gets a settlement? You want to do that? Well, guess what? You have some skin in the game. You're going to risk. Well, what about the big guy squeezing out the little guy? Yeah, we got to put some sort of caveats or protections in there for the little guy that has a legitimate reason to sue the big guy to make sure that they're not squeezed out. But the premise of you cannot just bring a lawsuit to court and hope the guy settles or get away with it, throw some spaghetti against the wall and hopefully it sticks, that mentality has got to end, and we've got to put some sort of legislation in place to end it. Car dealership in my hometown of Vacaville had a wonderful community event every year. Carnival, Ferris wheels, games, food. Every year it was a big deal. They shut down the street. He closed his business for the day, didn't sell a car all day. Every year it was a big deal. One year, a gal trips coming off the Ferris wheel, does not hurt herself, tells her husband, "I'm fine," just keeps going. And this is the story the owner told me. But no, the guy says, "No way, this is our ticket," and goes into the owner's office and says, "My wife fell off coming off your Ferris wheel. I'm going to sue if you don't give me one of the cars off the lot." Well, this owner has got some gumption and says, no. So over a year of litigation later, all kinds of stuff back and forth, the owner still ends up paying, I think he told me $1,500 or something crazy, when he was willing to settle for, I think, $15,000 to get it over with. But he got it all riled up, you know, the guy kept saying, "No, I want this much," and the guy, the suer, just overstretched his hand, and the owner said, "Enough, I'm in this far." But guess what? It was a small check to the guy, but he still had all those legal bills. And he was not even close to being in the wrong. So these are the kind of things that are killing jobs in America, and there's no reason for it. It's not right. And we need representation in Washington that's going to say, "I want to fix that." That's me. I'm one of those guys. So, growing jobs to grow revenue, and we can do it. It's not telling businesses how to work. It's not hiring government workers. It's getting the burden off of businesses so they can get out there and compete and win and grow and hire people. All right. The other side of balancing the budget is cutting spending. We spend $3.6 trillion a year. I can't even imagine that money. Remember I said $2 million a minute that we borrow? We're talking $3.6 trillion a year that we spend. Holy cow, that's a lot of money. The government does way too much, borrows way too much, spends way too much. We have to cut back on things that are just not wise. Good to say that, right? Oh yeah, we all agree on that. That's a good idea. How would Congressman Rick Tubbs go after some of these spending cuts? First of all, Medicare. You don't have to raise your hand, but for those of you that are on Medicare, do you know that about 25% of the budget of Medicare goes to fraud and waste? About $100 billion. Estimates from 70 to 120. I just throw the $100 billion out there because it's a nice round number. Fraud and waste doesn't deliver one service to you, doesn't pay one doctor. It goes to criminals and just wasting the system. And we can save that money if we went after it. If we invested, Rick Tubbs talking about cutting spending, invest some money into the fraud department of Medicare, make it a more robust program, and go after that money for real. Get those bad guys. You've got credit card companies that do billions of transactions a year with about 1% fraud. They're doing something right. Now, when you talk to the head of the fraud department of Medicare and you ask her, as I heard an interview of her, "Why do you let this happen?" And she says, "I have 1 billion claims a year. I don't have near the resources to go after that kind of fraud. We do our best." And then later in that interview, I heard a conversation with a criminal that was in jail that racked up $10 million. And this kid didn't sound like he had a high school education to me. But he racked up $10 million in Medicare fees before he was finally caught. Now think of the folks that are actually sophisticated and smart out there doing this. We've got to go after that. We can pay for Medicare easy if we can cut it by 25%, never cutting one service or one payment to a doctor. Now it becomes a whole lot more affordable. Let's talk about some other programs. There's about $98 billion, and this is according to a Heritage Foundation study, about $98 billion of just bad accounting practices in the government, costing you money. Your tax dollars being wasted. What does that mean? You go into the grocery store, my wife, where'd she go? She left. Oh, not for real.
She's heard this message before.
Yeah,
She's not
she has.
listening. Yeah.
She tells me that I thought milk was about $3 a gallon. Yeah, she reminded me it's a little more expensive now. So I just use $3 because it's easy. You go, yeah, I don't want to believe it's higher than that. But anyways, you go into the the store, you buy a $3 gallon of milk, you throw a $10 bill on, and as you're walking away, you notice you only have $2 in your hand. It's like, hey, wait a minute, I gave you a 10, and the clerk goes, oh, you're right, here's your 5, and you go up. Right now, we have just bad accounting practices that the government throws a 20 on the table and walks away. And there's your money being wasted. $98 billion. Go after that, and it just takes effort. It just takes people doing their job, going out there. It takes congressmen and women that are willing to put in the effort to make sure there's accountability in those programs and in those different agencies to make sure they're spending your money wisely. As a military commander, I get that scrutiny all the time. And I answer the mail all the time because somebody's asking. And I have to stand up to my boss and explain why I spent certain money one way or another and making sure we get the best value out of that money. It's not ours, we can do it. So there's another way. Okay, that's billions of dollars. Let's go to millions of dollars. Who remembers the spotted owl? Okay, I'm not here to discuss or talk about that whole issue. But I will say that in reaction to the loss of lumber industry to the spotted owl, the government started a program to help the Pacific Northwest lumber industry with some money. Northern California, Oregon, and Washington. Now you'd think that that program would go away after a few years, after the lumber companies transitioned out, and those millions of dollars spent to help that transition would go to zero. Well, the problem is that program has not gone away. As a matter of fact, over all these years, it has grown and grown and grown. It's in the tens of millions of dollars. And now because of smart Congress people out there that have figured out how to tap into that program for their state, there are 43 states tapping into that program and getting spotted owl lumber money.
There aren't that many
Okay.
spotted owls.
Yeah. Why? Why is that happening? Because there's no accountability, no tracking that. They pass a law, they let the program go, and then the bureaucrats grow it, and more congressmen go in to tap into it, and it just keeps going bigger and bigger. We've got to have elected people up there that says, that's nuts, I'm not going to do that, we're going to stop that. We're going to zero that out of our budget. We're going to save you that money. We're going to balance our budget by not paying for those programs that we just shouldn't be paying for anymore. All right, one more cut. Well, there's lots of them. I'll give you one more. And in my debate with George Miller, George Miller's who I ran against last time, we had 4 debates. I give him credit for showing up, to respect the man as coming out there. But I talked about different cuts, and one of the cuts I had a sheet of different foreign aid projects, anywhere from $10,000 to $800,000, and it wasn't buying influence or what I see foreign aid's role is as a military guy is buying influence or preventing having to use the military to achieve certain goals. I agree with that kind of foreign aid, but this foreign aid was going to shore up a mosque in a certain country, or retool or rehabilitate some sort of archaeological site in another country. I'm looking at this sheet going, you're kidding me. Why are my tax dollars going for these projects in other countries? That has nothing to do with me as an American. It doesn't buy me any influence. It's some giveaway of my hard-earned dollars. So you look at billions, millions, hundreds of thousands, I'll be down in the thousands. And I'll be looking at stuff to cut to save your money, because that's a lot of money to me. And it's not small potatoes or just little things like some of our career politicians kind of think, oh, 800,000, that's nothing. Go ahead, put it in the bill. Baloney. I'll be looking at that and go and say, that doesn't belong there. Okay, cutting spending. Some real examples for you. Some real hard examples. So when you pull that lever, you know that Rick Tubbs is going to go after the Spotted Owl program. You know that Rick Tubbs is going to go after those agencies spending your money very poorly. Increasing the fraud department at Medicare to save our Medicare for our seniors.
And it has nothing to do with cutting police and fire and.
Yeah, and that's state stuff, and what you just said, Rosalind, just had nothing to do with cutting police and fire. Here's another insight into my brain and how I think. The federal level, your #1 priority is national defense. I mean, we have to spend, there's money to cut in military too. I'm well aware of that, and I have ideas on that. But our priority is national defense, taking care of vets, because they're part of national defense, and then you work down into the judicial system, infrastructure, those kind of things that we need to spend money on. Your tax dollars should be spent on those things. What you're bringing up is state issues, which I'm running for federal government, but my perspective is the state's top 3 priorities should be police, fire, and schools. And where do they cut first? Police, fire, and schools. Why? I don't know why, but I would not agree with those priorities and their cutting spending. So when you think about how I'll look at the federal budget, prioritizing spending, that wouldn't be in the top of my list. All right, let's go on. Let me kind of put this in a little bit of a fun way, but a serious way at the same time. If you like Obamacare, vote for John Garamendi. One of the first things he did, if not the first vote, is when he raised his hand after a special election down in my neck of the woods, winning Congress, is he voted for Obamacare. If you like Obamacare, vote for John Garamendi. If you like the increase in your insurance rates in direct response to the cost of Obamacare, then vote for John Garamendi. Talked to a gal in Marysville the other day who her quarterly, the only person she was paying for as a small business owner was her health insurance, went from $4,100 to $7,000 per quarter last year. If you like that, vote for John Garamendi. If you like the 800,000 jobs that the CBO is projecting we will lose thanks to Obamacare, vote for John Garamendi. If you like the 159 new agencies that Obamacare is going to start, vote for John Garamendi. If you like that now the original cost of $900 billion has been re-estimated by the CBO for $1.76 trillion, a deficit, negative spending of $1.2 trillion over 10 years. If you like that idea, vote for John Garamendi. One more. If you want to see 16,000 new IRS workers as a result of funding and implementing Obamacare to help with the healthcare system, if you like that, then vote for John Garamendi. If you don't, vote for me. Repeal and replace Obamacare is my second priority, and it's part of everything in there. It is way too large of a government program, too large of a grab, and there are smarter and better ways to reform our healthcare system. Oh, by the way, our healthcare system is the best in the world. That's why leaders of countries come here. One day I was at Andrews Air Force Base flying my airplane, and I get out and I see the Jordanian, Air Force One right outside. I was parked right next to it. And so I go into base operations and say, hey, what's up? They say, oh, that's the King of Jordan here for his cancer treatment. Came to America, huh? Not too long ago, the Prime Minister of Canada was over here for some cancer treatment. It is expensive here, no doubt about it. But it's expensive because it's the best care in the world, and if I need to go to the doctor tomorrow, I'll probably get an appointment. Maybe I'll have to wait till Friday. At a really bad week, I'd get in on Monday. If you go to some of these other places that have socialized medicine, you're waiting months to go see the doctor. If you got a cold, forget it. Just stay home. We have to repeal Obamacare. Now, some of the provisions like pre-existing conditions, making sure people aren't dropped if they get sick while they're on insurance, keeping your children on until the age of 26 if need be. I like those, but they cost money. Don't try to pretend they don't. They cost money. What I'd like to see is some changes like having competition across state lines like we do with the auto industry. Get competition out there, free market ideas. Something that if you are uninsured, make sure they pay their bill. Whether it's $10 a month, I don't care. Why is there the assumption that the uninsured just always get dumped on the rest of us who are insured? Why aren't we holding uninsured accountable for their medical bill? Let's do that. But also with that, this is where I think government regulation is good. Let's make sure that the hospitals or the doctors are charging everybody the same as a maximum. I talked to one doctor, or actually a board member of North Bay, who said, well, sometimes we kind of do charity work. So I don't like that rule because it takes away the ability to do charity work. I'm like, okay, well then we'll do a maximum. Everybody has a maximum. So if you're uninsured, you're not paying $23 for a Tylenol or $6,000 for a broken leg when the insured person only has to pay $900 from their insurance. So let's make sure that the bills are payable. Okay, there's lots of ways to fix this. Oh, tort reform, huge. Talking to doctors, which I sit down and I have lunch with doctors, or when I'm in for my cold or my physical, I talk to them. I say, hey, how do you like this stuff? And several doctors have told me 50% of what they do in tests and things like that are for lawyers and not for you. They know you don't need it, but just in case they get sued, they got to order this test to cover their butts. Excuse my language, but I'm a military guy. That's military talk. It's actually CYA, which is even worse, but my children are here. So anyways, tort reform has got to be implemented so that doctors are trying to treat you instead of satisfying lawyers. I mean, don't get me wrong. A doctor shows up drunk and cuts the wrong leg off, yeah. Okay, that's what malpractice lawsuits are for. Not if he's doing his darn best, or her darn best, trying to heal you, and it just doesn't work out. That doesn't give you a lottery ticket winner to go sue. So anyway, so we got to do some of that. Obamacare, repeal it. If that's what you want to see, vote for me. If not, vote for the other guy. And then California's water crisis. We have been sitting on our hands. Yeah, I know. Ask me that question later. We have been sitting on our hands for a generation, over 30 years, not fixing this problem. There are some really smart, dedicated people, water engineers, I've met a few of them, that are trying to increase our supply through all kinds of different ways, as well as satisfy the environmental concerns that are out there. We have not done one thing to increase the supply of our water for this state for over 30 years. We stopped building dams. We're starting to tear them down, which is absolutely nuts. We cannot pass on this problem to our children, because 30 years from now, it'll be terrible, too late and terrible. We have to increase our water supply. We have to have drinking water. That's a function of government, drinking water. We have to be able to save our delta. We have to have the fresh water supply to push that salt water out, so the salt water doesn't come up and make it a saltwater marsh. That is a priority and important for a lot of reasons, whether it's the farming, the fishing, just the entire environment itself out there. We have to do that. It's a priority. And third, we have to have water for our agriculture industry. It's important to California. It's important to our country. It's important to the world that this state that produces so much food is not inhibited from that, like we did a couple years ago when we turned the water off to the Central Valley and created a congressionally created dust bowl. My wife sent me a picture from driving up and down 99. Look, just dead crops and land because we turned the water off. We have to have supply for all three. We can't put them in priority order, because guess what? We've already lost the farmers for a couple seasons and killed them. If you know anything about farming, which I'm guessing most of you do in this room, if not all of you, you can't just go without water for 2 years and start over with a 2-year break. You've killed your trees that took anywhere from 7 to 15 years to get to where they're at. It takes 7 years for almonds to be productive, right? 5, well, producing, but profitable, according to my father-in-law who has an almond ranch. They might get you some paychecks, but they're not paying for themselves.
Pecans are 7.
Pecans, yeah. So if you kill your trees, it's not like you can just pick up where you left off. You have to start over maybe a decade from where you're at. So we have to have it all. And we can do that by increasing the supply of our water system through increased storage, more dams, don't tear another one down. Recycling of water. I put water on my lawn during the summer. I don't drink it. Why does it have to be potable water that we have run through the system as fresh water that comes through my sink to drink? How about the car wash place down the street? That certainly doesn't need to be potable water. Or any other industry that uses water as part of making stuff. And it doesn't have to be potable. Let's do recycling water. There's like 40% extra supply there if we do it right. It'll take some money, yes, but it's worth it. This is a problem we have to fix. And then desalinization is another issue out there that we can do for some of the larger places like San Diego, LA, and San Francisco. When you think about it though, now I just said some good ideas. I'm going to give you another solution in this. First step to increasing the water supply in California, build the Auburn Dam. Build it, finish it, get all that water supply. I know there's concerns out there. This is the 21st century, we're smart. We can do it. Let's do it. We stopped building it in the early 80s. Just think if we had all that water right now. We would have never had that Central Valley problem if we would have had the Auburn Dam built back then. Okay, enough of all that excitement. Hopefully, I have given you one. I am about fixing problems. I am about solutions, and I'm not afraid to give you some and let you know how I want to go about to do it. I don't have every answer, but I've got a lot, and I'm willing to go out and fight, and I'm willing to learn for the others. And I'm willing to look to you, my constituents, to help me in that process. All right, next. Shifting gears to the actual campaign and election. This is our new district. We're way up there. Whoa, whoa, right there. I live down here in Vacaville. And we have some of Sacramento, all of Yolo, Yuba, Sutter, Calusa, most of Glen, and some of Lake County. It is mostly a rural, at least square mileage, district. A lot of good folks here, all the way around. Most of the votes are right here, where I live. About 126,000 voters there, about 80,000 in Yolo, and then a smattering of single digits to 10, 18,000 up there. So down here is where most of the folks live in this district, where I'm from. So why is that a big deal? Well, let me tell you, when we talk about winning this election, which is back to our vision, why I'm doing this, go ahead, Luke. We look at the registration of the district. It leans Democrat, 42% to 33%, 9 points. In my last election, I ran in a district that was 59 Democrat to 20 Republican. I think those are really good numbers from where I came from. Okay, but let's look at the voting history. 2010, this district actually voted for Carly Fiorina over Barbara Boxer. The Republican won by a point. For governor, Meg Whitman did lose by 7. So it does matter the candidate and how they run. California Assembly Republicans in this district, if it was built the way it is now, beat their Democratic opponents by 6 points, 47 to 41. And coming down here to Congress, the congressional Republican candidates, which I was one of, lost, but only by 1.5 points to their Democratic counterparts. So if nothing changes between 2010 and 2012, the D Congress candidate will beat the R Congress candidate by about 3,000 votes. Now, why am I so optimistic that we can overcome that? Because we did this once, and we have some experience in history, and this is what we learned. I call it the 5 snowflake snowball. That's what we started with. My wife, my 3 kids, and me, that's how we started our campaign in January of 2009. Well, that 5 flake snowball started rolling downhill and gathered steam and more snowflakes, and it was pretty big by the end. We had about 800 people, a little over, raise their hand and say, we want to help you, Rick, in some way, somehow. We had about 1,000 donors give about $100 a piece, which was a lot of money. And we spent it wisely, I guarantee it. And so we had a pretty good machine going by the end. And what that developed into is the one area that my old district overlaps with my new district, Solano County, Vacaville, where I live. In 2008, George Miller, my previous opponent, beat that Republican by a vote of 54 to 40% by about 5,000 votes. In 2010, running this kind of race that I'm doing right now, talking to folks like I'm talking to you, we turned that vote. We beat George Miller, 57 to 43%, right there in Solano County, by 4,000 votes. We swapped 9,000 votes in a town of 95,000 people. And we only need to swap 3 in the rest of the district to beat John Garamendi. That's why I'm so hopeful. That's why he's nervous. Sorry, John. Next slide. Okay. And I want to say just one more add-on to that. Fairfield, the sister city of Vacaville, they know me just as much as they know me in Vacaville, even though that's where I live. It was funny, my boss, a colonel in the Air Force, he came in, he just moved in from the Midwest, and about a month and a half ago now. He's getting settled, he's trying to find a place to live, and he's getting out in Fairfield, learning stuff. And I'm in his office, and he goes, I can't go anywhere in this town without somebody knowing you. What's going on? And that's what I told him. Well, sir, I'm running for Congress, so, kind of out there in the public. But anyways, he knew. So Fairfield, we expect at least a similar result. that we had in Vacaville, and then we're still going to all these places. I'm here in Glenn County. I'm here in Willows. I spend a lot of time reaching out to Glenn County to win votes. That's how serious I am. I'm not discounting any corner of this district. We're going everywhere. I'm focusing on Solano. Out of the 10 town halls I'm having, 5 of them are in Solano County. But 5 of them are out here. And if I had more time, I'd be everywhere else too. Lake County, we were out in Lake County. That was my second town hall. We were in Marysville. We're going to Yuba City. And I think that's it. The rest we're out there. Oh, and Woodland next week. We're going out there to win votes everywhere. Everywhere. I'm not gonna settle just for turning 3,000 in Fairfield. I want the district to know who I am, why I'm running, and hopefully will earn their vote as they go to the poll. All right, a little bit about me and then I'm gonna wrap up. My wife, Christy, I think you all met. We've been married almost 23 years. And in that, and we have, thank you very much. And we have 3 wonderful children that you saw coming in here. The 2 girls outside, 18 and 14, and Luke, 16, here working the computer. Chris and I got married the same weekend. I was commissioned in the Air Force, so I've been in the Air Force that long. 9 years on active duty, and the rest in the reserves at Travis Air Force Base. We got there in 1995. Spent some time in Texas before that. We had that small business of property management and development in early 2000 to 2003 when I was activated to go to war for Iraq. So we ended up selling that business a little while later because the Air Force ended up keeping me for 7 years when we thought it was only going to be a year. It was voluntary after a certain amount of time, but we did do small business together. What else? I've served in Iraq and Afghanistan, combat pilot kind of thing. Those are some interesting stories. I'll be happy to tell you sometime. And let's see, civilian employment, I fly for United Airlines out of San Francisco. I've been there since 1999, so I'm a pilot. But I have done all those budgets for the Air Force, like we talked about before. I received my BA in math. I'm a numbers guy. I love numbers. They love me. We get along. I don't know if that's true for everybody in here, but we get along. And I got that down at Fresno State. I've done several military schools to learn strategy and strategic thinking and all that, and it's amazing how much of that strategy transfers from the military into civilian life, especially campaigns, but we won't go into that. Top secret stuff. And this is going to be my most enduring feature tonight for you, as I have never held political office before. Well, like I said, I've been around the government. I know a lot of how it works. There will be some learning as a freshman. You know, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to learn. One thing in the military, you get a new job about every 2 years, and so you got to learn it all over again. So it's not something I haven't done before. I am ready to be your congressman tomorrow. I am ready to go start solving problems tomorrow. Some things to learn, but I'll learn them. No big deal. And we'll get going, and we'll be fixing these problems and making sure we save the American dream for our children and grandchildren right there. One more click. Okay, so wrapping up my portion of it. You see we've got a pretty good candidate. Hopefully I've convinced you of that at some level. Working hard out there. Lots of volunteers. I'm asking for your vote. Second, if you can, help me out, volunteer, delivering some flyers for the next town halls, making some phone calls, telling your friends and family about me, getting out there. And then a third thing, and I really do put this as last in my campaign, although it's still necessary, is money. If you have some extra money and you can throw me a check, whether it's $5 or $2,500, that's the max. We always like those checks, but any bit. It does cost money to run this. I have pretty much given up my life savings to do it, which is okay. I'm happy to do it, but I can't do it without your help, both voting, volunteering, and money. So before you leave tonight, if you like what you heard, throw some money in the kitty so I can help, so it can help us get this message out. And then lastly, but certainly not least, actually the most important, we just ask for your prayers. This is a lot of work, a lot of stress on the family, but we are proud to do it. We are energized to do it, but I know prayers help, and if you wouldn't mind praying for us, we certainly appreciate it. And I know that will help us the most. Anyways, that's it for now. I am wrapped up, and I am opening this up to questions. Please go ahead. Sir.
Got 2 or 3 questions for you, but number one, what's your thoughts on the lobbyists? They're one of the biggest menaces that there is in Washington, D.C. And if you just cut all their legs off just above the knees, well, that would help out quite a bit. And the sad part of it is that the whole bunch of them are ex-congressmen and senators. And one of the other things that falls into that same thing is that everything I've heard is that someone like you going into Washington, you've got a lot of good ideas and plans. But they say, hey, kiddo, you know, you vote for my bill and I'll vote for yours. Otherwise, you get your hind end back there in the corner and just hush your mouth, because we're not gonna vote for anything for you.
Yeah, and 2 points are very good, and I love both questions, and I'll answer them both fully. Lobbyists, let me talk about one idea, that right now, I think it's a year from Congress to lobbyists, and oh, by the way, you could actually work for the dang firm doing not lobbying. Let's make that 2, maybe 5 years, and you can't work for a lobbyist in any way, shape, or form, so that you're separated from your congressional influence to your lobbying influence, right? Because that's a big deal. So that's, you know, a good point. But let me tell you something about lobbyists. I do not see lobbyists as evil. And I'll tell you why. Because whether it's that Exxon lobbyist in my office telling me I want to drill offshore, I want to drill in Alaska, and I'll be going, yes, I agree, yes, I agree. But if it's them in there with a fat check, or it's my daughter at 14 years old telling me, Dad, I want to park in my neighborhood, she's a lobbyist too. A lobbyist is anybody trying to advocate for their position to get you to do something as their representative. And I have no problem with folks coming in and telling me that. I want to hear it. And as I look at some of these issues, I want to talk to experts on the issue, but I better get both sides. And if that lobbyist check makes a difference to me versus my daughter's request, I'm the bad guy. Your representative that lets the lobbyist money dictate their vote, that's the bad guy. And we could do a lot better in this country if we had elected officials that weren't changing or writing legislation in response to money from those lobbyists versus what's best for America. And so if I ever lose that sight, I'm going to quit. And my wife will make me quit, which is good. But I will never forget that. Because, yeah, I expect folks to donate to my campaign because they agree with what I'm doing. If it's ever connected, if their money is ever connected to, I want you to do something against what you think is right, or try to move you in a direction, because if you don't, I won't give you the money, I don't care. And I'll tell you 2 quick stories on that.